All right, so in our last meetup, our developer meetup, I went over Sitecore Experience Accelerator, which is handled inside of the Experience Editor. So I felt it necessary to kind of go over some of that base fundamental stuff inside of Sitecore in order to really give you a full understanding of how the accelerator works and inside of the Experience Editor. And it was simply because most of the members of that group and some members of the team tend to use Content Editor more than the Experience Editor and aren't too familiar with the full ribbon and all of the tools that the Experience Editor provides. So this is straight from the horse's mouth. The Experience Editor is a WYSIWYG editor that allows you to easily make changes to items directly on the page. You can edit all of the items that are visible on the page, like text, graphics, logos, links, and so on. In the Experience Editor, you can edit the fields of the current item and the fields of any items rendered on the page. Using placeholders, you can place renderings directly on the page and configure them to meet your page design needs. Okay, that's directly from Sitecore. What I'll say is that you can speed up your page design time and configure it to be very shareable as well as compatible for other pages through Experience Editor rather than going through all of the fields inside of Content Editor. Okay, so if you're a page designer or someone or a developer that goes in and wants to do a lot of personalization or A/B testing, you want to do that inside the Experience Editor. Okay, a big thing, the major thing about the Experience Editor is the ribbon. The ribbon is at the top of the page. It has all of your tools, all of your functions, all of your configuration buttons, I'd say. And that's where you go and you manage. Now, based on your access rights, based on your role, you can it determines what you see and what you don't see. Okay, so an admin and developer, you can see just about everything. While if you're just a content editor, we can restrict what they view. Okay. Just a quick, I got the air parrot things on oh, okay. That's fine. This is not a part of Sitecore, the Sitecore ribbon, but it is there because this is the ribbon. You guys have seen this throughout the content editor, throughout email campaign manager. Sitecore has a ribbon. On the home, you have where you can set your components. That's fine. Set your components. You can set the edit. You can choose what tab you want to review. Set all of the presentation details. All of that is available right on the home tab. And when it comes, I'll go through a demo as well, so we'll get to see it up close and personal working and all of that. But this is just a brief overview of each one of the tabs. So that home guy, you can set the display name, all of the configurations of an item itself, you can handle from there. Your publish tab, your publish settings, and all of that good stuff happens there. Your presentation tab is where you can determine which layout, whether it be the final layout or the shared layout. And if you're unfamiliar with those, we'll definitely go over that as well. But you can set those presentation details here. You can set associated content with a page from that tab as well. The Experience tab, if you want to test out how your site will look in 2019, you can do it from there. You can set you can determine which layout or which device you want to review your page on, whether that be the default device or a print device or a mobile device. You can view that all from that tab. Okay. You can set versions, you can add your versions, you can remove your versions, you can verify what your page would look like in a different language, all from that from the versions tab. Okay. Then we have an optimizations tab. This is where you'll have your personalization configuration, where you'll have your analytics goals and all of that good stuff that you can set. Okay. As well as your view. Your view tab allows you to view different controls or different aspects of the Experience Editor, including a navigation bar, any associated content. You can highlight and add different markers on the page for you for easy configuration and working with the tool. Can we go to the next one?
You're right in front of you.
Oh, that guy.
Yep.
Thank you. My peripheral is. It's not very, very big. Okay. Some of the key concepts when working in the Experience Editor are architecting for the Experience Editor to remember are layouts. And when I say layouts, I'm not entirely talking about the main layout or your default layout that gets set on the page device, but I mean rendering components that we tend to call design layouts. Those are your 2-column layouts, your 3-column layouts, a split layout, those layouts that help define what the page design looks like. Okay, when you create those, you want to make sure that they're associated and have the associated components filled out so that you can easily swap or replace a layout and not have to make many changes inside of the presentation details. Okay, placeholders are placed inside of the layouts so that you can place component renderings inside of those. Okay, and we'll get to some of that. Renderings, we all know what renderings are in different components, but we want to architect them to be easily replaced or related to another component that may use the same data source so that you can change presentation details on the fly. Okay, and then your content. You want to make sure to not place everything on a single page or on a single template. You want to have global content so that it can be reused and shared and personalized throughout the user experience.
I got it.
You got it. All right, we switch back.
Yeah.
All right. This is just a quick screen grab of layouts to give a better understanding. When I say main layout or default layout, this is the layout that sits on the main device. Inside of there, this content placeholder, you can place an open layout or you can place a 2-column layout. These two here share a placeholder, so it's easily swapped. So if you go to a page that has a full wide design pattern, you can easily swap that for a 2-column if we architect it correctly, and I'll show you that here in a moment. And then placeholders, yeah, next. And then placeholders is just like it's placeholder inheritance. You want to make sure that you have a placeholder key, the name of the placeholder so that your rendering can recognize it, as well as setting an allow controls field to determine or restrict what content can be placed inside of this placeholder. So if you have a content placeholder here, you may want to only have design layouts that are allowed inside of that placeholder. And a design layout may have a content body and then a sub layout inside of that, which will have a content left and a content right. Okay, and the restricting what goes inside of a placeholder really helps with the design and helps prevent the content editor or designers from going too out of bounds. Okay, go ahead. Let's demo. This is the fun part. Raise your hand if you've used page or Experience Editor and designed a page inside of it before. Okay.
It's an admin?
Yeah. Thank you. Now, if you missed last week or last month, we reviewed the Sitecore Experience Accelerator. Okay? And I'm going to essentially use Experience Accelerator to help visualize what the Experience Editor does. Okay, so from here, I'm going to go to the Publish tab from the Content Editor, go to the Publish tab on the ribbon, and I'm going to click Experience Editor on the page that I want to design on, okay? So I've already created a demo article. This demo article is based on the habitat, which Ben Vital will go through a bit. But inside of here, you'll notice that I already have a couple of placeholders set up. These placeholders come out of the box from the Experience Accelerator, which helps a marketer or helps the team or improve the design phase, get from market to or get from design to market, essentially, where you don't have to go to a developer to add components on the page or develop a carousel or develop some or use code. Out of the box from the Sitecore Experience Accelerator, they have a ton of components, including layouts and placeholders that I help you present to the stakeholders or whoever needs to approve a page design. Okay, if we notice here inside of this placeholder, I can edit the placeholder settings. Well, first, before I go too far, I know I discussed the ribbon. I just kind of want to show you that ribbon if you have never seen it before, and all of the tabs that we talked about here. From here, from my home page, I can enter a component. Now, if I click that button, you'll see that everywhere that I need to enter a component, or I can enter a component or a rendering, I have an Add to Here button. Okay, you'll notice that some of these don't seem to be like components, but if I click on an item and press this guy here, this gets me to the parent component, which itself is a placeholder. And then I have the Add to Here buttons. Okay, again, I click this new component button, I have Add to Here, I can add just about anywhere I want inside of this design, but I'm going to simply add a new call out or contact information I'll go with up there. And that gets added to the page. I'll hit save so that that content does not disappear on me. And you'll notice it's there. Now the page itself has a title and a body. Okay, I can edit title, body, summary, and I can edit those items or those values directly from the page editor or the experience editor. I can add text to the field. I'll save that, and you'll notice that if I go to this page item inside of Sitecore, those fields have been updated. Okay, and those are directly associated with the page fields from the page template. Now this contact information that I've added, this is actually associated with a different item. So if I place my marker there or my cursor inside of this field here, and if I click more, edit the related item, a new window will pop up that takes you to the content editor. There may be times when you're within the experience editor that you need to edit fields that are not visible or not directly rendered directly on that page, and that will take you directly to where that item is inside of a content editor above the page editor. Okay, you'll notice that the related item of that guy is the Habitat main site, because the details for the contact information itself are down in the organization section here. Okay, so I could either edit this information here, or I can go to the content editor, edit it here if I want to get into a rich text editor or anything like that. So that's two ways right there. The experience editor editing shows you how to edit content itself. I want to close this tab here because I don't necessarily want to change Sitecore's information. But we can also point to global content. So again, I click the component, new component guy. I want to add, let's add a quote. That seems good. And when I hit select, an associated content window comes up. Now this is because inside of the content editor on the actual component itself, when you're architecting it, you want to make sure to set the open dialog property to yes or default. But that allows the content editor to automatically go and pick associated content or create new content. The reason it's pointed directly to the quotes object is because inside of that content editor, we've set the path for its data source location. Okay, and I'll show you that quickly here. Inside of the content editor, when you're architecting, when you're creating some of these assets, you'll want to make sure to follow these. Now this is also based on Helix, and we'll go to the actual rendering. The common folder itself is from the accelerator, so if you want to install the accelerator, you'll notice that it'll add that common and some of the common things. And let's find, Oh, sorry. Let's find the actual quote module. You know, I didn't look for the actual quote module before. I'll show you that in a moment. I'm gonna go back to this here. But that is so that you can pick up any content that you want and direct a content editor to get to the proper pace without them having to search around or drill around just about like I was about to do. So I'm going to select some content, select this groundbreaking quote. You'll notice that if I had this selected, this is not a valid selection. The Experience Editor tells you that once you set your data source type. We'll select that guy and we'll see what renders out. Okay, we got a nice quote from a Sitecore MVP. You guys can read it. I'll hit save. And we'll notice that this content here can now either be personalized, it can be sorted. I can move this up. If I do this here, no. Yes. I can move it to here above that contact information I've placed on the page, or I can move it above the menu items. You can sort all of the content and components that you place on the page themselves. So I'll save that. Now let's say we want to actually personalize this component. Have we ever raise your hand if you've personalized a component and you know about it a bit. Let's actually personalize this guy. You'll notice that each component itself has its own ribbon. We have that move item. We have an edit item where we can edit the related item, a personalized button. We have an actual testing button if you want to do A/B testing or delete. This guy sets what the data source should be and allows you to edit that related item if we need to do that. This shows you how often this is used, and this gets you throughout the navigation or the hierarchy of the placeholder and the layout. But for now, I'm going to use this personalize button. I click that guy. You'll notice at the top we have personalized the presentation of this component. Whether or not if I click this on, I get the option to show it or hide it. I get the option to change the actual component itself. I also get the option to set the content that should be there. This is the default presentation itself. So for default, I'm going to use the quote that we selected, and I'm going to add an additional one. I'm going to say, let's change it to month. All right. Name it month. That is because I want to edit a personalization rule that says when you go to the date section, when the current month equals a certain month. Let's go with October. Okay. Edit that rule and I'll hit OK. And under here, I'll set the content to be Jane Duan. If anyone knows how to pronounce that name better than I do, feel free. So I'll go with OK to save that rule. Now from there, you'll notice that the personalization ribbon or tab pops up, and I can go and verify all of the available conditions, and I can set that condition to simply see how it will look. Okay, it's loading here. Sorry, there it is. Okay, I can add as many personalization rules as I like to, and I can test and verify the presentation from there. Okay. Now here with the Experience Accelerator, if you notice, I have the 2 columns and left columns. Let's say I want to swap that out. Let's say I don't want to use an inner 2 column 4-8. I have a swap button or replace with another component. Don't necessarily have it on this guy because there aren't any associated components or related components that can be swapped out. But with a layout or with something that uses the same data source type, whether it be a list of links or an image or whatnot, you can easily swap out the component with the related guy. So I'm gonna swap that and go with a side-by-side or a 6x6 placeholder. And you'll see that it's swapped out there. Hit save. You always want to save after you make one of those, a change like that, because if you go too far and you start adding something, it'll tell you that you're going to lose your content. So just make sure to save. So let's add something in there. Add a media gallery. And we'll add that carousel. Again, these are components that are directly out of the box with the Sitecore Experience Accelerator. That Experience Accelerator, again, allows you to get to market much faster. It allows for concurrent phases, design, UI, UX phases to happen at the same time prior to development. Okay, and if you'll notice, the control properties just popped up. It's because I asked to open the dialog itself right after I placed it on the page and selected the component. You'll see that the placeholder that is inside of is page layout, which is the main placeholder, if you remember from the screen before. Section narrow, section narrow, which is the actual placeholder that the column wide 1 sits in, and this naming convention is probably something I wouldn't suggest, but again, that's from Accelerator. And then the data source itself comes directly from the global area within that Habitat website. So I can change that just by going to Browse, clicking that guy, there it is. Or I can change it here, change associated content. So there are a number of tools and ways to work around and add different content to the pages through the Experience Editor. I personally believe it is the best way to experience the page and what the page how the page will look and feel, and test out what it would look like in the future if you're personalizing content. You guys have any questions? Nope. Okay. Anybody want to see more cool stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. We'll do that. I have a couple of more minutes. So,
Sitecore related?
maybe.
Okay.
I can ask you a question that clients often ask me, Gilbert.
Go ahead.
If they were adding and they don't know what the, can you go back to where you were?
Which way? One of the placeholders?
Yeah. Can you open the edit? So if they don't know what the on-page location is, how do they determine that?
If they don't know what the page location is?
I'm sorry, the placeholder.
Oh,
When you click it.
so there's a placeholder settings here. That guy. It shows you what the key is here. Okay. Also, if you need to know the usage, well, that's for the associated items. Are you looking for just the placeholder name?
Yeah, sometimes I get that question often.
This is the placeholder name itself too,
I see.
right there. If you want to know what it sits in, you press that placeholder hierarchy button. But if you're looking for just the actual information on the placeholder settings itself, we go to, again. That's not a placeholder, sorry. There we go. You go here, make it a bit bigger. You can set which placeholders are available to swap out here on the controls. You set the actual placeholder key name. Well, you'll need to go inside or have a developer go in and update the actual key. You won't be able to do that from the Experience Editor. You can also create new settings here. If you wanted to associate new settings and give it a new name under the placeholder. I don't suggest that any page designer or anybody do that through the Experience Editor, but it's possible.
What does that do?
It actually creates new settings for that placeholder, so new available controls, a new name if you want to just replace the old one. You can, if you have placeholders that have the same settings, like available controls, but just maybe a different key name, you can select existing settings based on a placeholder from here. Like if I wanted my narrow section to be just the standard section, I can set that. And then the actual controls and available controls change here, although my key does not.
So that it allows you to extend the available components at a page level instead of a
Exactly, exactly. Okay, that is my time. I'm done.